and welcome into Delaware Live Sports, a podcast edition here just ahead of our 2023 fall season. Football, as well as our other fall sports, just around the corner. The focus of today, though, will be football for this fall. Nick Alessandrini joined by Jason Winchell, Mike Lang, and Benny Mitchell. Jason, how you doing today?
Doing great. It's going to be great to get back on the sidelines coming up in the next week. I mean, a couple games Thursday night next week.
That's right, a week away. Mike, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I actually stopped by a volleyball play day today, and
was that today?
One was today. I hit the Sally's Howard football scrimmage last Friday. Nick, it was crowded. It was hard to get parking at Abyssinia Stadium for a scrimmage, and people are ready. I'm ready. We're all ready to go.
And then we bring in from down south, Benny Mitchell joining us via telephone today. Benny, some shifting downstate as well. How you feeling? Ready to talk some football?
Yeah, ready to talk some football. Spend a day at the beach, and not as much looking forward to those August games because it's a little less time I get to be away from the beach that you all come down here and back up our highways and stuff. But you know what? Labor Day is coming up.
That's right. Then you get rid of us, I think, and then you can get your city back to yourself. But you also did some Little League baseball, right? And me and you did some of the Delaware championships, and it was good to see MOT head to the next level. Did you check out any of their matchups after we got to finish up their regular season?
Pretty much the afternoons and 7 o'clock been spent watching Little League World Series baseball, and as I tell you, some Chinese Taipei say they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah. Kid throws 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, that is. Hey, I'll tell you, you're right about that. All right, well, let's jump in to the task at hand, and that is football right around the corner, as Jason alluded to earlier, a week away until we are underway already here in 2023. Seems like just a few moments ago that we were crowning our champions last winter, I guess you could say, when it was all said and done with Smyrna, Friends, and Laurel. So a great season capped off at the University of Delaware, and it's time to get right back at it. And some news, some shifting, some coach changes, a lot to get into ahead of the season next week. So let's just dive right in. And Jason, let's start with some of these coaching changes. That's where we'll begin today. Which one maybe comes to mind first for you as something you're going to look forward to, or maybe something you're keeping a closer eye on a team this year?
Well, to me, it starts at Salesianum, where Gene Deladon's going to take over for one of the all-time winning coaches, and he's got a different offense. He was the offensive coordinator last couple of years, or co-offensive coordinator, so he started running the system. But it's going to be interesting. He's in 3A. He's got a tough schedule this year. He's probably got the most pressure of all the coaches on him, taking over for the legend. But I think it's going to be a fun year for Salesianum, and they got some interesting 3A matchups, and we'll find out. I would probably say the week three when they play Smyrna, when Smyrna comes to town, kind of see where they are.
Mike, what about you? Mike, I know you're also paying attention to that Salesianum team. You just mentioned that scrimmage from a little while ago. What stood out to you watching them here in their first year under head coach Gene Deladon?
Well, they did not throw on every down. Some people would think they might come out and just throw. They still have Andrew Ransom is back, and they have B.J. Aline, transferred from DMA. He was a freshman at Salesianum a couple years ago. He's back as a senior. Wow. They still have a lot of good runners over there at Salesianum, and their defense is really I think Howard was quite at peak level yet. They struggled against the Sally's defense, and their coach of the defense is Paul Warlow. So we all know Paul played for the Falcons and a couple other teams 6 years in the NFL, and he's out helping Gene and at Sally. So that's good to see him giving back. I know we have other NFL player, former NFL player helping out. Bodie Calhoun from Del Castle is also coaching somewhere, but it was good to see Paul out there. I just don't get it was about 90 degrees out there, and he was out there in a hoodie, and he was soaked from head to toe. But they told me that he always wears a hoodie no matter what the weather. But
it's like you in the shorts, no matter how cold it is.
Yeah, well, I guess that's true. Sally's just looked like they were just a little too much for Howard, but it was good to see them back on the field.
And now, Benny, shoot it down south here. What coaching change comes to mind for you guys?
Well, we had a little switching around. You got Sean Strickland. He's now at Caesar Rodney, his alma mater. The spring they had 65 kids out. They're expecting probably over 100 kids once the fall. The fall hits and the freshmen get out. And then you got Jed Bell taking his place at Milford, coming from the DIAA. Jed also returning to his alma mater. The last time we saw Jed on the sidelines was in a state championship game up at the University of Delaware. And then kind of a big story, not so much it's Seaford, is with Mark Quillen leaving. He goes back to Sussex Tech to take the athletic director's job. Austin Perry takes over as head coach. But from what we're hearing, the cupboard kind of cleared out before he got there. Some guys we're probably going to see maybe on other rosters. We don't know yet. And then early college in Dover is what we don't talk about. But one of Cape's longer tenured coaches, Zach Horsemeyer, he takes over as head coach for Dante Jones. And, that also takes an experienced coach away from Cape, who's under a new coach from last year. So a little bit of people moving around. But I think the big one is Strickland at Caesar Rodney and Bell at Milford.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two big ones down south, and now some more up here north. Jason, which one next comes to mind for you and a new coach, maybe with a new home here this year?
I think Avery McMullen going from Tatnall to McCain. McCain moves down from 2A to 1A. And I would think they would, with Laurel moving out of 1A just became, I think, more open this year. So it'd be interesting to see what he does at McCain. He's lost a few people, but I think, he's in a good spot down there at McCain to, possibly be, in the state tournament this year.
Yeah, McCain, a team, a team maybe you should keep an eye on here this year under first-year head coach, at least for the Highlanders, Avery McMullen, making his way from Tatnall, as Jason alluded to. Mike, you got another coach for us here, another coach that comes to mind?
Yeah, the former coach at McCain, Matt Carey, moving over to Delaware Military Academy. High hopes always every year at DMA. Things just didn't work out under the former coach, and now they bring in Matt Carey, who is pretty well established here in Delaware, and I think Matt will do great things for the Seahawks. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over there. They do have probably the state's best lineman in Kel Denigris. So
wrestling state champ,
and
too.
a wrestling state champ, to see what goes on over there. They did lose B.J. Aline, so there's some changes coming up, but all the schools have changes, so we'll see what happens for DMA.
That's right. Again, we don't have an exact number on the coaching changes here this year, but some new faces at a bunch of new places.
It's like 13 or 14. It's a lot.
Yeah, here in 2023.
14 was the last total I had.
Not only coaches being the only things changing here in the offseason, some class changes as well, and some shifting there. Benny, what's the latest on anything down south in terms of some class changes, teams moving up and down?
The only team we had moved down here was Laurel. They're a two-time 1A champs, and they're moving up to Class 2A. They'll move to District 3, and so you got the Henlopen South the band's back together again in the Henlopen South. But what did Joey Jones do? Last year he went as a single-A school. He went 4-0 against AA schools. So he moves to AA, and what's the first thing Joey Jones does? Give me Sussex Central for the season opener in Class 3A.
Man, I'll tell you again, and being able to watch that team last season, Benny, and you had an up close and personal look there. So talented. I got to check them out in that state championship game. The fire, the energy that team brings onto the field. And you said it. They were not worried at all. State champions. Let's just go ahead and go up. Not all teams are like that, ready to make that jump like that after experiencing success, especially newfound success for Laurel here the last couple of years. But they are going to head back up. Benny, what do you think their season's going to look like this year? Making that jump. What's the outlook on Laurel?
I think they're going to be in the mix. I think if you look at Class 2A in their district, I feel like it's them and Lake Forest. Laurel did that. Yes, they graduated 17 kids from a small school. Caden Shockley, probably one of the two biggest losses, 44 starts as a quarterback, and schools don't get a lot of that. And then Kylie Wilson, he's headed to Del Valley. He was big for them the last couple of years. Shockley over on the roster at Salisbury University. But look, they're not dead in the water. They return Patrick Bell, Xavier Limehouse, and Tate Walls. Limehouse and Walls scored 2 of the 4 touchdowns in the title game last year. If you remember, first series, I think third play, when Xavier Limehouse went off left tackle and went into the end zone on like a 20-some yard run. And then they're not looking very far to get a new quarterback. It's Kobe Shockley, the younger brother of Caden.
How about that? Runs in the genes there in Laurel, and you mentioned it. Going to open up with Sussex Central. So right off the bat, they're going to dive right into it with that class change for Laurel. And I'm sure head coach Jones and company, they will be ready for that one. I can guarantee that. Jason, any other teams here? Let's look up north now. Some shifts there in class. What do you got for us up north?
Well, I'll go. The other team moving up from 1A to 2A is Odessa. This is the first year they have a senior class. So
I remember going back, Jason, when we did their first game, and they were sophomores, and they were like, it's our homecoming. But we've got nobody coming home.
Exactly right. Now they're going to have a senior day this year for the first time in their school's history. The only thing is they're in District 2. And look at the other teams in District 2 and the traveling Odessa's going to have to do. You got Archmere up on Philadelphia Pike. You got Mount Pleasant, another school off of Philadelphia Pike. And then you got Friends, who plays near Ambasino Stadium where Howard plays. Yeah. So, they're going to be doing a lot of traveling in that class, and Tower Hill's the other team, so they're another Wilmington team. So Odessa's going to be doing some traveling, but I think it's a district that they can fit in well to in 2A. But you know what? District 2's had the last 2 state championships in 2A. Are they going to make it a 3, and could Odessa compete in it? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting just to see the move up. They got a lot of kids on the roster, or at least they did, and now you had a senior class in there. It's going to be interesting, but that's a big one for me. And they also are playing Appo and Middletown this year, 2 3A teams, so their schedule's loaded. It's going to be a tough schedule for them, but it's exciting for the Ducks in Odessa.
And Ducks, that's right. It's another team that we've been kind of focused on. Shout out to the Odessa Ducks, improving every year. And again, love what they've got going on that campus down in Odessa. So shout out to the Ducks. We'll see what they've got in store, making that class leap, as Jason alluded to. Mike, any other class changes we should be aware of?
Yeah, I'm looking at Conrad. Not a lot of seniors on the team last year. They do have to replace Lanique Preston, who was he did everything for them, played defense. But they have a junior quarterback, Gabe Welsh, who was pretty solid last year. And a lot of young kids that were on that team last year. Of course, they're all a year older now. But a lot of freshmen and sophomores played for the Red Wolves last year. And, they've moved down to 1A, so they're going to be a little bit more competitive. They were 4-6 last year, but they won 4 of their last 6 games. So the only loss is coming to Newark, who was a pretty darn good team last year. And then they lost to Concord and a shootout, but they had some good wins last year. They open up, Jay, you mentioned about changing classes. They open at McCain, but their first home game this year, Sussex Tech, who I believe is a 2A team, so they get a chance to play up and maybe pick up some bonus points there. So that's and they also play Odessa, who also moved up, so they have a couple of chances to play up a little bit. But I keep waiting. Maybe this is the year that the Red Wolves are back in the state tournament. I've got a lot of faith in the Red Wolves, and I love going out there to watch games, and maybe this year is the year it happens for them.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think about some of the other sports, right? Made to the state championship in baseball here this past spring. The basketball team with a huge jump this year. They looked pretty good, and they're going to be good in the next couple of years as well with that roster and some of the kids that they've got over there. And we'll see if they, again, got hot at the end of last year on the football field. We'll see if they can get going now, get off on the right foot with that class change as well. Jason, Mike, any other class changes come to mind you think that are going to be impactful? I mean, obviously all are impactful, but that come to mind here?
Well, I think the obvious one is St. Mark's. I kind of left that for Mike, and he went the Conrad way, which is good. A lot of people, we need to talk about some of those 2A teams moving to 1A. But yeah, St. Mark's is big. I know and when I did a piece, I did an article for Delaware Live on the class changes, and I think St. Mark's has a good chance to make the 3A state championship this year. They got 6 home games. Their crossover games are against Cape and CR, both at home. It's a favorable schedule for them. They did well in 2A. They play well at home. I think they have a chance. It's going to come down to some of their head-to-head games against Appo, St. George's, William Penn, CR, and Cape. But I think that they have a good shot, I think, to be one of the 8 teams in the 3A state tournament this year.
A lot of size on St. Mark's. They're going to have a big line. They're replacing some guys from last year. The big one would be Luke Watson on the line and a couple of guys in the backfield. But boy, they have some size on the line. And they with Zellman, they got Connor Sullivan transferred from DMA. They have a receiver like Logan Klein. This is a team that, and they have if Jude Campbell's the quarterback again, he kind of moved into that starting role toward the end of last year. Kid's got a cannon arm, and he's got a year under Joey Wright's system. I'd say look out for St. Mark's, and I think they've got an excellent chance of playing in the postseason in Class 3A. And they have a pretty good schedule, so we'll find out all about the Spartans. Nick, I know you'll be watching
Absolutely.
with a very interested eye.
Absolutely will. Again, you can check out Jason's article on DelawareLives.com, as well as my article on the Graveyard, which is also on DelawareLive.com, Delaware Live Sports as well. I mean, and you talked about that, right? It's a little bit unusual. You talk about a team making the jump up, especially to Class 3A, and then already including them maybe in that playoff and title conversation. So that shows you how much talent there is down on the hills of Sparta here coming into this season. Benny, you heard Jason and Mike talk about some of these teams up north. Which one do you think is the most impactful, or which one are you most focused on? Is it the Spartans moving up to Class 3A?
Well, if you go back to the old Division I, Division II, St. Mark's was more successful in Division I than they ever were in Division II. Even when they were Division II enrollment, they challenged in Division I. They got to Division II, and I don't know if they just played to the level of their opponent or what, but they've never really been a threat for a state title in Division II. But they have in Division I, and they're back there again. I think those guys are right. I think St. Mark's is going to be a handful for teams in Class 3A. Going back to Single A, something interesting I find, and let's see how this plays out. There's Blue Hen Conference schools. There's Flight B, old Flight B schools, Brandywine, Conrad. They don't come down south very often. Well, now they have to, because Brandywine and Conrad are in District 2. Brandywine, they got to head down to Indian River, which is going to be a tough game. And even going down to the Poly, it's just something these teams don't do a lot. Indian River, they've been traveling up to St. Eves for the past couple of years. They're used to traveling. It's going to be interesting to see how these Wilmington area schools, how they travel down here in that Class A.
Yeah, Benny's right about that. That's going to be interesting, that whole travel factor. That's like when you're talking now national news and you're thinking about the Pac-12 traveling cross-country to play some of those teams in the Big 12, et cetera. That's kind of like what they're looking at here with some of that class matchups here in the state of Delaware.
Yeah, in that District 2, I mean, down there, the Indian River's at Conrad week 9 in the season. That could be for the District 2 title. I mean, that District 2 is going to be very competitive.
Under the lights at Conrad.
It's going to be interesting. And again, Nick Allison, Jason Winchell, Mike Lang, and Benny Mitchell hanging out here, just chit-chatting ahead of the 2023 season. Again, you can catch a show, what we're planning on doing here next Wednesday night, the 30th, just ahead of week 0. You can write that down in your book. As of right now, subject to change here on availability, but should have a show for you guys next Wednesday night where the crew will break down the new Super 7s. You will catch the debut of those next week, as well as some of the breakdowns of the upcoming week 0 matchups and beyond. So you don't want to miss that next Wednesday. But now, guys, let's dive into some of these classes and maybe just give a season outlook here on top of it all. And let's start here with Class 1A, guys. Laurel, back-to-back state champions. That is no longer the case. What team are you looking at now down in Class 1A that maybe could step up and take over that championship role?
I guess I'll start. We were talking about it before we started here tonight, and Tatnall is the one that is coming to everybody's mind. They have the running back, Rashawn Lamont. The guy's electric. By the way, saw him play lacrosse. He's an excellent lacrosse player as well.
Wow, I'll say we've done some of like a fair share of his games over the last couple of years. We've gotten our Tatnall in, and I'll tell you, you're absolutely right. Human highlight reel. Love watching him play.
He absolutely is. And they also have their quarterback back. And Nick, I should have done my homework. I'm going to have to cheat and look up the name here of the quarterback, and my apologies. But,
and they were putting something together last year, right? Last couple of years, getting to that semifinal of 1A, both tough matchups. They played tough in those games, and with not a lot of bodies, too. You look at the roster numbers for them the last couple of years,
Yep.
It's tough to even get, 11 on 11 sometimes over there, and they still performed.
It was a freshman last year. Quinn DeVere, by the way, is his name. And I saw them play at Archmere last year. Archmere was pretty loaded, and DeVere really did a good job running. He was able to throw the ball a little bit, and they also have Mike the Stamper, I think, is coming back this year. Not a ton of
like Percy Harvin, like for the Florida Gators.
Not a ton of seniors on that team, so maybe it's time for Tatnall to take the next step. So I'm looking forward to seeing, among other schools, I'm interested in seeing how Tatnall does down there in Class 1, and love the Hornets.
Benny, you got to see the last couple years. Laurel back-to-back state champs, no longer there. Is that a team, Tatnall, maybe the team you're looking to as well in 1A, or what are your thoughts on that class without Joey Jones and those Laurel Bulldogs?
Well, after watching the way Tatnall played Laurel last year in a loss in the state semifinals, I think they're as long as they have all the pieces together, they're your team that people are going to chase. There's some chatter about Wilmington Charter. Now that St. E's is going to be down. St. E's lost a lot, but another team I think you got to look at, and it's just the grit of Indian River. They're going to come in with no superstars. There's going to be hard hitting, and who has kept them out of state championships the last couple of years? St. E's and Laurel. So I think Laurel leaving and St. E's been a little bit down. It really opens the door for Tatnall, Wilmington Charter, and Indian River to shine.
There you have it for Class 1A. Just a small little outlook there with the class, again, containing no longer the back-to-back state champions. So wide open now in that Class 1A. Let's jump now to Class 2A. We talked about the Bulldogs. They'll be battling now in Class 2A amongst some other teams here. Jason, what team are you going to be focused on here in Class 2? Or what do you think has a good shot there in Class 2?
I think 2A is, I would right now lean as Caravelle as the favorite. They got to the state championship game. They return a lot. Real good team. They moved from District 3 last year where they were going south and now are in District 1. So they're in there with DMA and Red Lion and Concord and Newark. But I think 2A is going to be one of the more competitive, classes.
So we said last year, right? And it was.
Now you got Laurel moving up. I think Lake is going to be good again. It's teams like Archmere, Howard, I'll even throw Wilmington Friends in there. How did they regroup after a lot? All three of those teams dealt with a lot in graduation, but who's coming back? Who's going to take that next step? You got DMA with the new coach. So I just think 2A is really, Caravelle is my favorite, but I think it could be very wide open again. It's all through the three districts.
Mike, let's just get your quick thoughts on Class 2 as well. We talked about a little bit of the changes there. St. Mark's going up, Laurel going up to Class 2. What are your just initial thoughts here coming into the season on Class 2A?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how a couple of perennial powers fare. The defending champs, Friends, obviously lost a lot, and I want to see how
they did not lose the Kangaroo.
They did not lose the Kangaroo, but they lost a lot of talented players on that team. I want to see how they do, and also Archmere moving on from they're going to have a new quarterback for the first time in a long time, and they've lost a lot. But I haven't had a chance to see him, but Benny, you obviously know more about Lake Forest. I keep hearing Lake is a team to watch. And they were here last year to play Mount Pleasant. They came up this way. I haven't looked at their schedule, but if they get up this way and I'm free on a Friday night or Saturday morning, I might go out and check out the other Spartans, not the St. Mark Spartans.
Yeah, Benny, I had a chance to check them out twice last year. Lake Forest, they've got weapons, especially offensively. Have you had a chance to check them out at all last year? And some of those names. And what do you think of Lake Forest and the Spartans coming into this year, if you've had a chance to?
Lake Forest, you start with Jonathan Tyndall, the 4-year starting quarterback, 2-time district, all district quarterback. The key to Lake Forest is how fast they can get Aiden Young back. ACL surgery last winter or spring. See how many games they have to go in before they get him back. Again, they're playing in that. It's now AA District 3, but it's the old Henny South. Lake Forest, Laurel, Woodbridge, Delmar, Woodbridge, Milford, and then you add Sussex Tech, who used to play in the Henlopen North. I think that Laurel, and it's going to be. We're going to have it on Delaware Live late in the season. I think it's week 8, week 9 maybe, when Lake Forest travels down to Laurel. Every year, the thing with Lake Forest is they've always played one game, not up to their. They've stubbed their toe at least once a season over the last 3 years, and the last 2 years it was against Sussex Tech. So they always have that one letdown. Can they put together 10 good games? And I think Freddie Johnson is going to keep that in mind. But I think the team that beats Caravel, they return a ton from a state final team last year. I think another team you got to look out for is Red Lion. We don't talk about them a lot. They have a 4-star quarterback there, and I think all their skill players are back, and we're going to find out a lot about them week 0 because they're traveling down here to Cape Henlopen to take on a 3A team, and we're kind of going to be able to gauge Red Lion. But I think Caravel's your team to beat, and I think Lake Forest and Laurel are going to be in the hunt.
Benny, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say my team I had to look out for is going to be Red Lion, head coach Ken Anderson's squad coming into this year. Benny mentioned it, Evan Buttinger, having a heck of a season last year, kind of came onto the scene out of nowhere there, and we got a chance to check him out. We had him on the show with Red Lion. Great on the show, by the way. One of the best the schools we were able to have on, and just very polite and very good on the show, and got the chance to check them out, and Buttinger looked really good, got better as the season went on. I think their whole team did, battling those injuries. Underclassmen got a lot of playing time. They got better as the season went on, and I'm with you, Benny. I think that's going to be a team that'll be ready to go here coming into this season. So definitely a team to look out for. Did lose Kyle Manley. That was a big weapon for them on the outside, so they'll look to replace him. But a lot of guys back, so Red Lion definitely a team to look out for in Class 2A. Mike, Jason, any other teams that you might want to talk about here before we move on?
Well, I don't know how I know they lost a couple of players, but and I do this because of Nick Halliday, who's not here tonight. I'm always rooting for Mount Pleasant. They kind of, to be kind, were kind of robbed of a playoff spot a couple of years ago because of the format. They always seem to have a real competitive team. They have a new coach this year. I know they're going to have. I think they're going to have a new running back, featured back, because Bird, I believe, has graduated. So I know they go down to Milford week 1. It's going to be a tough one, with a new excitement with Jed Bell there, and it'll be interesting to see how the Green Knights fare and if they can finally get over that hump into the state tournament. So they may not get there, but I'll be rooting for the Green Knights because I live by their number 1 and. The boss went to school there, so I have to root for them a little bit. But it's good people over there at Mount, so we'll see how they do.
Yeah, Class 2A, once again, we talked about it last year, the parity in that class, and it was fun all year long, and a heck of a championship we had between Friends and Caravel. So now, guys, any closing words on Class 2 before we head to 3?
No, I just say, like I said earlier, Caravel, I think, is a team to beat. They bring back a lot. They got to the state championship game, but I do think there's some parity in there, and it'd be interesting to see how the season plays out. Like Benny said, there could be some key week 9, week 8, week 9, week 10 games in the 2A class.
All right, well, let's jump now to Class 3A. And again, coming off a state championship win for the Smyrna Eagles last year, where they kind of ran through that playoffs and ran through that state championship. That was kind of their championship to lose, and they played like it. They win the title, and we'll be looking now to do it again here in 2023. And most likely maybe all our number one teams. Again, we're not going to reveal our Super 7s. You have to tune into the show next Wednesday night for that. But as a little tease here, they're going to be up in a lot of our rankings here in Class 3A, obviously, to begin the season. So you look at Smyrna, guys. Benny, anything we should know? Obviously, we don't have Glenn Frazier tonight. He will be back Wednesday to inform everyone about, obviously, the Smyrna Eagles in that part of the state of Delaware. But couple losses for Smyrna as they come back here into Class 3A, looking to repeat as back-to-back champs.
Couple losses. 24 players from last year graduate or move away. I mean, that doesn't. Don't put them down at the bottom of the rank or the standings, because Smyrna doesn't rebuild, they reload. But they're going to have a tough task. Like I said, 29 guys are gone from last year, and for the first time in over a decade, there's not going to be a knight playing for Smyrna. So they were key. That family was really key to the success of Smyrna High School. And now you got they've been when you call like Penn State linebacker you call Smyrna quarterback high. I mean, they have really put some good quarterbacks through. And I understand they have Nolan Henderson kind of buzzing around, helping out a little bit. I know he's been running his quarterback camps.
Ooh,
and
it's pretty big news there.
Yeah, I've been following him on Twitter with some of the guys. He's got some of the top quarterbacks in the state that he's got under his guidance. And because every time I look at one of the videos, a lot of those practices are at Smyrna, so he must be still hanging around the area. I think the downstate, at least in Class 2 or District 2, it's the same three. It's Smyrna, Sussex Central, Dover. Not necessarily in that order, but those three are going to be big again. You got Dover coming back. They got the big three coming back. Nassim Cosme, Jaquan Kilby, John Parker. Those guys are a threat to score whenever they touch the football. Then you look at Sussex Central, and you got the two big defensive ends in Kyle Custis and Kayvon Bradell, and returning linebacker Justin Negrone. And then they got that big fullback and Malik Bell. They do lose a lot in the offensive backfield. As a matter of fact, they lose everybody. Bell was a second-half player last year. Now he's got to carry the load for them. And then remember, they got that big kicker in Ibrahim Fahako. That kid's got a heck of a foot on him. But I think it's going to be, Middletown lost a lot, too. I was looking at their roster from last year. So who's the favorite? I don't know. I keep going back between Smyrna and Middletown, and I keep looking out over my shoulder at that Dover team. And then here's what I like is St. George's basically coming to the Henlopen North. They're going to be playing in District 2 this year, so that's going to be an interesting move.
That's right, Coach Wilson's squad going to be ready there. Team maybe nearing that Super 7. Again, you can catch that next Wednesday night. So Class 3A looking tough as usual. Benny, again, talking about Dover, Smyrna, Middletown. Jaquan Kilby, I have to say, one of my favorite players to watch. And I'm seeing some of the highlights that he's been posted out here this summer. And I think we all thought he'd be in store for a big year, but it's coming again. Another big year for him on the ground. He looks spectacular as always. Guys, 3A impressions. We talked a little bit about Gene Deladon's introductory here at Salesianum. What are you guys looking for out of this Salesianum team in the first year under Gene?
Well, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. I really like the way they, his schedule sets up this year. He's got Middletown at home. He's got Smyrna at home. They travel to Dover. They travel to Appos. So they got some tough road games in there. Just one out-of-state team this year. The last 2 years, they played all in-state teams for, I think, the first time since I can remember. They always, when I played, I didn't play. When I was at Sally's, we only had 3 in-state teams: Newark, William Penn, and St. Mark's every year. We played the Coatesvilles, Downing Downs. I think that might be, the way I see Gene eventually taking it, maybe where you'll see them put more out-of-state games on there. But I like his schedule this year. It's going to be interesting to see. Last year they beat Middletown at Middletown in the regular season. not so well in the state tournament game down there at Middletown. So, it's a tough schedule, but it'll be interesting to see how his first season goes. I think it's going to be tough.
Again, first season, we'll see how Salesianum does. We touched on St. Mark's. We all expected them to maybe, be competitive up there in Class 3A. Benny touched on Dover, Middletown. We touched on Smyrna. And Mike, any team that you're focused on or that stands out to you that you're paying a little bit more interest to coming into this season in Class 3A?
I'm interested in Benny mentioned St. George's. I think they've been knocking on the door, and I want to see if they can make that push. We talked about St. Mark's. And Benny mentioned when they went to Division II enrollment but stayed in Division I, they never made the Division II state tournament. The last time they were in was 2014. That was their last year as a Division I team. And then they got in when they went to the 3-class system. They were able to finally get back in. So maybe playing up will kind of motivate them a little bit. I know they were trying to get 2 more years in Class 2. So I'll be looking at St. Mark's. And the other St. Mark's connection is St. George's, your old coach, John Wilson. I think that's those are the 2 teams probably that, we're so used to Middletown, we're used to Smyrna, and Sussex Central's been really good, and Dover has finally made the comeback, last year. And, of course, when you live up this way, Salesianum kind of hovers over everything. But I want to see how St. George's does, and St. Mark's will be the 2 that I'm kind of looking at with a little bit, maybe not greater interest. They're going to throw me out of the Alumni Association if I say that, but just a little more intrigue. Nick, what's kind of funny is while Benny was talking, I'm thinking in Class 3A, there are only 3 teams above the Canal that are in Class 3A, William Penn, Salesianum, and I'm missing St. Mark's. Everybody else is below the Canal. It just tells you that the population shift where all the people have moved to Middletown and further south. So we're kind of becoming a 3A desert up here, But I'll be looking at St. George's. I want to see how if they can make that jump.
Yeah, that's another good team to look out for as well. Made some noise last year. That first round, I believe, made it the semifinals last year, right before I believe they lost to Dover in that semifinal.
They beat Appo in the first round at Appo after the Appo won their district and took the number 2 overall seed. They also, maybe something we could talk about, is that changing the playoff format largely because of what happened with Appoquinimink. But St. George's, they beat Appo in round 1.
Well, you guys want to touch on that really quickly and elaborate on what you just said there, Mike? Some of those changes. We might as well quickly dive into that right now.
Yeah. So, and Jay can help me out here. The first year of the tournament, it was basically straight points, right? The point index.
Well, it was the top 4 in each district made the tournament, so it really put the emphasis on the district games. Those were the teams that made it the top 4 in each district, but it came down to points. And DMA, who was 9-1, but in the weaker district, ended up getting the 5th seed that year, and had to go on the road in the quarterfinals and semifinals. So, we called it, they put in the DMA rule last year where they gave the district winners, in 1A and 3A, you got the top two seed guaranteed. In 2A with 3 districts, you had a top 3 seed guaranteed. And then you had a team like Appa who, with them winning the district, a 3-way tie, by the way, that they won on defensive points allowed in their district games. Anyway, they got the 2 seed where point-wise, they would have been about a 5 or 6 seed maybe. So this year they're going to go, and I think it's straight points after the district winners should probably get in because they're going to be, if they win the district, they're going to be up there in points. But after that, you could have 5 teams in the district of the 8 in 3A and 1A. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and I think Class 2A, if I'm not mistaken, when they went to the top 4, I think now it's the top 2, and then it's an at-large, I think, after that, or the top 3, and then an at-large for the last 2 teams. And that when we mentioned Mount Pleasant earlier, the first year of this 3-class system, they had a better record, but they finished, I think, 5th in their division. so they were out of the tournament. So, but they had beaten probably half the teams that were in the tournament. Not half the teams. They beat a couple of the teams that were in the tournament. And they had a better record than one or two of them. So, they're tweaking every year, trying to make it better. And one of these years we'll find the right formula.
So a little bit of a shake-up there. And now, let's just wrap it up here now, just with an overall look at some of these classes. And Benny, back to you here for this one. Is there maybe a class, which class to you anyway, do you think has the most parity, is going to be the most open, and maybe the most competitive this year?
Just like when it was just two divisions, it was Division II, and now it's AA. Something to do with the number 2, I guess. Class AA is going to be the most competitive. It's going to be wild. It's going to be high flying and crazy, and I can't wait for it to get started.
Jason, Mike, you guys agree with that one there? It's Class 2 going to be the most competitive again this year?
Probably. I think it's the most balanced as far as I think competitiveness goes. Although I think Carabel is kind of maybe a step ahead, but it should be kind of nuts, like Benny said. I'm looking forward to the Division I with Charter taking a step up, and I wouldn't count St. E's out, even though they lost a lot of talent, but you never know. They do have a returning quarterback, and with Conrad taking a step down and McCain, maybe that. I'm looking for some fireworks in 1A. I never even look at these districts, so I'm not sure who's in which one. But they all seem to play they're all within a couple miles of each other, so I'm pretty sure they're all in the same district.
Jason, what about you? I know you were shaking your head, nodding, I should say, about Class 2. Again, you agree?
Yeah, I said that earlier when we were talking to. I think it's going to be the most balanced one. Like I said, I think Caravel's the favorite, but I mean it's going to be. I think that's going to be the wild and stuff. But it'd be interesting to see what how 3A turns out this year with some new coaches in there and some new faces. Some of the top schools losing a lot to graduations and stuff. So I think that could be interesting. But I think the wide open one is definitely 2A.
All right, and then before we close things out here on a Wednesday night here, just a week ahead of getting the season underway, Benny, give me one player, again, that you think could maybe be the guy this year, a player of the year candidate. What guy you think could maybe lead his team to some big things?
If Lake Forest makes the finals, Jonathan Tyndall, the quarterback. Yeah, they're going to go as he goes, and he has had a heck of a preseason. In the first two scrimmages, he's completed all his passes. They're going to need Aiden Young back, but I think Lake Forest is going to be a very strong team. They just need to play consistent, something they've struggled with. But I think they've learned from this. These kids, a lot of these. Tyndall's been the quarterback. This will be his 4th season. So should Lake Forest win a state title or be in the finals, I think you got to look at Jonathan Tyndall, the quarterback.
Lake Forest certainly going to be a fun team to watch again this coming year. I had a chance to check them out, and they've got some guys that are just like joysticks there, some of those skill position players. So they're going to be one of the fun teams to watch. Jason, Mike, any players in particular you think could have a big year here in the state of Delaware this year?
Yeah, I want to go with a transfer quarterback, McKeevis Rogers, who is going to be at Newark this year. Newark's kind of been right there. He might be the one that kind of puts them over the top and really gets them that extra that they need to take the next step. Jody Russell's done a great job out there in Newark, and he's got a pretty seasoned, talented runner and passer in McKeevis Rogers. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he does this year with the Yellow Jackets.
Jason, I'm gonna switch it up on you. I'll give you the same one. I want your player, and then I want a surprise team. Can be in any class or in any district.
Well, I'm gonna go player, and I'm gonna keep the quarterback theme going, and I think it's gonna be Matthews, R.J. Matthews from Howard. They lost a lot to graduation, but he's a 3-year, 4-year starter, and he can sling the ball, and Howard always gives teams trouble. We'll find out early. They have a week 0 game against 3A Hodson coming up, and but I think Howard's season goes as his season goes. If he has a big year, I just remember last year they were the first team to knock Archmere off the thing, and he threw 5 touchdowns in that game, or contributed to 5 touchdowns. I believe he ran for 2 and threw for 3. So. He's a big player, and I think he'll determine how Howard's season plays out this year.
I'm going to go with, again, I'll name a few here just to throw out just some names here. I'm going to go with Rayshawn Lamont's here at Tatnall, Jaquan Kilby, obviously in Dover, and then Evan Buttinger, a guy another mention I named as a quarterback for Red Lions. So I'm expecting big years out of those three guys. And then, Benny, before we head out, give me a surprise team here in the state of Delaware this year.
Okay. Before I do that, we just answered our own question about which class will be most competitive, as we all pick quarterbacks from Class 2A. So I think that's going to answer kind of our question. Surprise team in Delaware amongst all three classes. Wow. I am going to say Indian River. I think Indian River is going to be a surprise team in Class 1A. Like I said, no superstars, but you're going to find out what's cooking down Dagsboro.
There you go. That's why I like that one. Jason, you got one for everybody?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but I think Odessa could be a surprise team. Sure. They were middle of the pack in 1A, but they have a senior class this year. They go to District 2, which again had the last two champions, but a district that could be more competitive this year because of graduations and stuff. But I think Odessa could be a surprise team, that can potentially make the state tournament.
Mike Lang, take us home here with your surprise team of 2023.
All right, this is going to maybe surprise a few people, but I, as the loyal clay monster that I am, Archmere Academy, I know they took a lot of hits as far as graduation, but this is a team that never really, they don't drop too much no matter who's on the team. And I think that they're very experienced, believe it or not. They still have a lot of experienced players. They've got a pretty big roster for, remember, Archmere's about 30 kids, which it's not pretty big, but it's a very experienced roster. And I think you're going to see big years out of guys like Cole Finese and, Brendan Burke and a couple of the other guys there. So look out for the Auks. And just looking at their roster, there's no freshmen on there. So they're not loading up with 20 freshmen on the roster. So look out for the Auks. I think they're going to surprise a few people.
Shout out to Cole Finese and Nick McGinley. Got to get that one in. So shout out to Cole Finese there over at Archmere. So guys, I appreciate your time. Benny, thanks for joining us over the phone here downstate, and we'll be looking to hear from you again next week live on the stream.
I will be there, and when the Laurel Bulldogs make the short trip to the castle, which I wrote a story about in our series on stadiums, to check that out on Delaware Live Sports. Really interesting little story there about Sussex Central Stadium.
Yeah, it's a good one. Again, you can catch that on Delaware Live Sports. Jason, Mike, thanks for making the trip in. Appreciate it. And again, we're getting ready for a big season. It all starts next week.
Ready to go.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on a Wednesday night. Again, show in the works for next Wednesday. You can catch it live on YouTube at Delaware Live Sports. For Benny Mitchell, Jason Winchell, Mike Lang, and Nick Allison Jr., your 2023 season outlook, getting you everything you need to know ahead of this upcoming fall football season here in the First State. We'll see you next week.